Welcome to Badass Tours. We're so glad you're exploring with us. My name's Elizabeth, and I started Badass Tours because I discovered all these amazing women, BIPOC, LGBT+, and Jewish people in Amsterdam history whose stories can be hard to find in English, even if they made an obvious impact on the world. Before we get started, I want to give you a flying overview of Amsterdam's history so you can understand these badasses and the time they lived in. Around 1250, a tiny village of farmers and fishers on the banks of the Amstel River built a dam across it. That village developed into a trading town. The Amstel gave it access to the major markets of Western Europe, while the nearby North Sea gave it access to goods that were rare in those markets. Dutch fishermen also figured out a way to preserve herring while on the ship, so they returned with holds full of what was a valuable trade good in medieval Europe, which had about 150 days a year in which Christians couldn't eat animals that lived on land. The city that grew around the dam kept moving its outer walls and building new canals, but by the end of the 1500s, the city was so crowded that there was a riot over construction. Not for the last time, either. The city then built a ring of 3 large canals around the historical center to create more room for people to live and merchants to store goods. In the 1600s, the Dutch East India Company kicked off an explosion of international trade, which meant that the canal belt's expanded harbor ended up being even more important than the new living space. In terms of politics, Amsterdam's always been a bit complicated, but I'll try to sum up. Basically, Amsterdam emerged as a city-state during the medieval period, when it jockeyed for self-governance and was under the sphere of influence of the Bishop of Utrecht, the Count of Holland, the Holy Roman Emperor, the King of France, the Duke of Burgundy, and the King of Spain. When exorbitant taxes and a religious inquisition were imposed by Spanish King Philip II, the same guy the English Queen Elizabeth I squared off against, the Dutch revolted and formed a Protestant republic with a pseudo-king called a stadhouder, who was about as powerful as he was politically savvy. After a century and a half of increasingly corrupt rule, the populace revolted with support from the new French Republic. Eventually, Napoleon invaded, and when he was defeated, the monarchies that defeated him insisted on establishing the Netherlands as a hereditary kingdom. We've remained a parliamentary monarchy to this day, though our government was in exile during the Nazi occupation. But history is the people who lived it, and we have some badasses for you to meet. Just watch out for bikes along the way. Totsies!